Hello, hello. This is Jenny, and thank you so much for tuning in to Simon Says. The appalling and disrespectful behavior of some of the parliamentarians in last Tuesday's sitting, that is Tuesday, the 23rd of May, 23, whilst the parliament was in session, is not acceptable. This type of behavior started from the get-go. And I thought by now, someone in charge, someone responsible for the younger ones in the Senate would have stopped them from that type of behavior, be it the Speaker of the House or the Prime Minister, the leader of government business, who at sometimes shows a lot of arrogance as well. But I think it needs to stop. It's just about time that we bring some kind of semblance to the house, the lower house, that is. You know, for years, decades actually, we've been speaking about having an opposition. We want an opposition. The NNP won all 15 seats back to back, and the NDC, because they're just these two parties really, was still looked at as the opposition, although they were not in parliament. However, they were still looked upon as the opposition. And for years, the opposition, the NDC that is, myself being a part of it then, been clamoring for opposition. We need an opposition. When we had the referendum, the NDC wanted to put in there the first past the post system so that at any given time when after an election, there would be an opposition in the parliament. Even if you lost 15-0, the first past the post system would allow opposition in the parliament. Today, the opposition leader in the House, he can't get up to speak. Whenever he's up, he's being told to sit down and shut up. This is something a parent would not even tell their child, or should not. Shut up, sit down, and shut up. Are the words coming from across, from the government side across to the opposition side? And I think it is really, really appalling. They send slurs across the way while he's speaking and continue to repeat, sit down and shut up. I saw last Tuesday the Prime Minister rise to help with the chaos that was happening at the beginning of the Parliament. The Speaker didn't know what he was doing. The members on the government side was all over the place searching for. And he stood up, he rose to help and to explain what should happen, which he did eventually. And you're telling him to sit down and shut up? Him being the elder and most experienced in the parliament. In my opinion, the Speaker of the House is still very incompetent. And we are, let's say, 11 months, right? They didn't start Parliament right away, so it could be between 10, 11 months since he's been sitting in that chair. And I am really, really disappointed in the way he handles the Parliament and still can't get a lot of things right. A lot of things right. So in my opinion, he should be removed. He's very biased as well. And we knew that he was a strong member of the NDC, actually had put himself up for candidate of St. Andrew Northeast. And so we knew that. And that's not something I don't think you could really change anyway, because the eyes always have it in the parliament. And it happened before with the opposition as well. Persons sitting in that chair was closely related to the NNP. But I think this is the most bias I've seen. And I don't even know if he's willing to learn. And so I think when the Prime Minister is doing his reshuffling, and so I think he should reshuffle the Speaker of the House as well. The leader of government business displayed rudeness and arrogance also towards the leader of the opposition, His Majesty's opposition. The leader asked questions and was looking for answers. And these questions were questions that came weeks ago, or maybe months ago, actually. And so he was asking again for the answers. And the leader of government business, you know, it's a sad thing when you don't know that you don't know. And so the leader of government business got up with arrogance. And I'll let you listen to it for yourself. What happened after the leader of government, of the opposition, was trying to get answers to his questions?
The next question is to the Minister of the Leader of Government Business. Yes. Leader of Government Business, and the Minister of Social Services, Community Development. And the first question is about the Labour Commissioner.
Mr. Speaker, this question speaks to the criteria and process employed in selecting the former Labour Commissioner. It speaks to the qualification and background that landed the job and the reason for the dismissal. I am pretty sure, Mr. Speaker, that the leader of His Majesty's opposition is fully acquainted with the processes and procedures of the Public Service Commission and would have first-hand knowledge that such a question must be directed not at the leader of government business or the government of Grenada, but should be directed to the Public Service Commission. Because the Public Service Commission, Mr. Speaker, is a separate entity and does not, under this administration, answer to the government of Grenada. They are a separate creature, and we cannot, Mr. Speaker, we do not know of what criteria they use in their process. We do not know and have not seen the resume for the person so hired for the job and the reason for the dismissal. According to the best of our knowledge, Mr. Speaker, and the best of my knowledge, I have seen what was news in the press, just as the leader of His Majesty's opposition. And so I wish to advise the leader of His Majesty's opposition that he can so direct or redirect his question to the Public Service Commission. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Leader of Government Business. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, of course, sometimes I believe I've seen it all, but it says that as you live, you will see and hear more. Mr. Speaker, I can say a lot what was just said. In fact, I think the member would have put himself in a very difficult spot by this comment. There was no need for it. And there's a lot that I will say in due course of this, what I consider, well, I find it difficult to get words. A non-answer. But with a tinge of arrogance. That's not what we're here for. I have a responsibility, honorable member, through you, Mr. Speaker, to ask questions on behalf of the persons that we represent and the people of the country. And answers appropriately must be given, not a dictate from a member. No, it cannot be. In effect, what he's saying, the Public Service Commission appoint permanent secretaries, so I should ask them no questions. The ministers are overall responsible for the leadership of the government departments. They have a fundamental responsibility. And you can't tell me to ask the Public Service Commission a question. The Public Service Commission is not a creature of this Parliament. Let's get it right, Mr. Speaker. They are not a creature of this Parliament. Just like a permanent secretary or cabinet secretary is not a creature. Members of this side of the House, the government side, yes, they're green, but there are ways of getting information correctly, Mr. Speaker. And you can't be waving and telling me, shut up. That's little children behavior. I have a responsibility, and you can't come here and talk like that. I do my best in cooperating and offering advice consistently. My whole approach this morning will tell you this. And my questions and information before I say a word. But I will not sit here as a member of this House and after 30 odd years, almost 40 years as a member and father of this House, I didn't give myself that title to have this sort of answers given by the honorable member. Mr. Speaker, the question has to be answered, Mr. Speaker, and I hope you will use your good office to advise the member that the question must be answered, and don't ask me to go to the Public Service Commission for answer. Mr. Speaker, and as I take my seat, I would like that when questions are asked, because the questions will be coming. It will be coming. It won't stop.
You know, what is interesting is that the Minister of Labour and the PSC, I guess, and ultimately the Cabinet of Grenada hired this lady for the job as Labour Commissioner. We didn't see the PSC in a press conference telling us all the wonderful things about Miss, what is her name? Telesford? Right? We didn't see. Who we saw was the Labour minister telling us all these things. When she was fired, the Labour minister came back to tell us that the glove didn't fit, that she did not fit in with the others, with other members of staff in the Ministry of Labor. And so they had to let her go. Let me read a snippet of what the Labor Minister had to say about this fine lady. The first woman to serve as Labor Commissioner in Grenada and bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the position. Mrs. Thomas, and I apologize for saying Telesford. Mrs. Thomas specializes in labor studies with an emphasis in negotiations, labor, administration, labor dispute management, and tripartite dialogue. Her professional career includes employment with one of the largest trade unions in Trinidad and Tobago and highlights a sterling record of success before the industrial courts. Mrs. Thomas also has experience in the Grenada public service, having worked over 17 years in the field of general administration and human resource development. So says the release put out by GIS on November the 4th, 2022. All this, but the Minister of Labor and Legal Affairs, the Attorney General, Minister of Consumer Affairs, came and told us that this lady, highly qualified for the job, she was fired with immediate effect because she did not fit in. And so the leader of government business there was asking questions, some of which, one question I think it was to do with her salary, the amount, and and that sort of thing. And there the leader of government telling him, go and ask the Public Service Commission because they don't know anything about the Public Service Commission. They have no interference. This government, he says, has no interference with the Public Service Commission, and they don't know how they hired and how much they were paying her. Imagine that. And we supposed to sit out here and believe that. And he don't know that he can't tell the leader of government business that. He have to get the information and come and answer the question. We'll take a break and come right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. You know, I wasn't going to speak on this topic, the Delma saga. I tried not to when I started last week because it was very current. But I've been being asked to speak on. They want to hear my views on it. And so I hope this is the one and only time I'd have to speak on it on Simon Says. So let's take a look. The NDC was boasting of history being made of 10 seats. They now have 10 seats in Parliament, so it's now 10-5 instead of 6-9. This is not the first time. This is not the first time we have resignations from the two major parties. the NDC and the NNP. And this is not the first time we have the crossing of the floor either. We had times when persons resigned and did not cross the floor, but there were a couple of other times when it happened. So there's no history in the making there. Arlene Walker, and I would still call him Honorable Arlene Walker, my good friend up there in St. Andrew Northwest, the same constituency as Sister Delma. And he went from NNP, he crossed the floor and went over to TNP. So he won his seat under the NNP. He crossed the floor and went over to TNP. He won his seat there as well. And then he crossed and went over to NDC, where he remained up until the ending when he decided to come out of frontline politics. My good friend, Arlene Walker. I drew for F&F, by the way. Only some of us would know what that means. I'll give you a visit soon. Then there was Michael Batiste. Michael Batiste. He ran on a GULP ticket, won his seat, crossed the floor and went over to NNP. Wasn't happy with what was happening in there. And I often say that I marvel really at politicians that leave their party, and I'm talking about frontline politicians, and cross over to what we would call the enemy, really, and how they manage to survive, and if they are just surviving because they want to, because they're in the other party and they have to show that they can make it. But Michael Batiste didn't stay. He crossed back into GULP and became the leader of the opposition. So it happened before. Then we had resignations from people like Raphael Fletcher and Grace Duncan, who were candidates, MPs, members of cabinet of the new National Party, but didn't cross the floor. They resigned, but didn't cross the floor. We had people like Kenny Lansing, who was basically thrown out of the NDC, and he eventually went over to the NNP. These days I see him hanging on again with the NDC. And I just can't deal with those things. You don't have to be in a party to be productive, to do things, be patriotic for your country. You don't have to be in a party. You don't have to join and go up in there. If you're not happy and you leave, you resign, you got thrown out, you don't have to. If you're young enough, you can form your own party because you would have your own ideologies. And it would not have been the one of the enemy or the opposition. And I'm not meaning opposition in parliament, but two parties, they're opposite each other. And you don't have to. So you can resign, you can run independent, you can form a party, you can support the government. If you resign from the opposition, you can support the government, as I say, patriotically, without joining and becoming a member and all up in there. That's the way I see it, right? So the fact that we're jumping up and down that the NDC now have 10 seats, I don't agree with that as well. Because Sister Delma did not cross the floor with her constituents. She went with the seat, but not the person or persons sitting in the seat. These constituents are NNP supporters. Yeah, I'm not saying she would not have gone with a handful. Close friends and family, persons dear to her who she would have affected one way or the other, who think that they should remain or follow her across because she did something that impacted their lives. I'm not saying that wouldn't happen, yes. And there were, I would say probably from what I see, about 25 persons in a T-shirt saying Team Delma. And even if it's 50, by the time the election come around, it will reduce. Get ask Peter David. It will reduce. He went with a few well from NDC. And look at the last election, and it would tell you, canvassing, as far as I understand it, in the town of St. George, showed that a lot of the persons who followed him out of NDC when he was expelled, he and his grouping, that they went right back to the NDC in the last election. It doesn't mean that in the next one, they would not go back to the NNP or whomever. They are flip-floppers, you call them. But when Grenadians vote, and I think I can speak for the rest of the Caribbean, when we vote for party for the most part and not individuals. When you go into the polling station to vote, what you see on the ballot paper are symbols and not faces, not pictures. You see symbols. So you're voting for the house and the star. And that is the reason why quite a bit of the persons who voted in the last election for the NDC, and you could ask them now, would tell you they don't know who they voted for because they were all new. Some of them did not have the time to work the constituency. They had other members who were long-standing members working the constituency for them. And so up until the time of voting, and probably even now, they never saw, never met, don't know who they voted for as an individual. They voted for the NDC. What I was told, come on board. Let's get rid of Keith Mitchell and the NNP. And when I said, and how about governance after that? Because when I saw the list, I was not at all impressed. And so when I got the response that it don't matter, all as long as we get rid of Keith Mitchell and the NNP, we go figure that out after. And that is why 11 months later, they're still trying to figure it out. One colleague, a good girlfriend of mine, told me, she said, I'll vote for a frog. I don't care as long as we get rid of Keith Mitchell and the NNP. I want to tell that sister, I think she did vote for a frog. So, it's not 10-5 in reality. That's sensationalism, right? And it brings nothing extra to the table. Because in the parliament, the government side, who obviously won the election, that's why they're the government side, they had the majority. And in the parliament, the ayes always have it. Except for a couple of parliamentarians, Tobias Clement, Michael Batiste, Clarence Rapier, a few of them, except for that little handful who would sometimes, very rare, stand up against their side and not really stand up, but speak out on a matter, maybe, a matter that they're not at all happy with. Everybody else, and they still end up at the end of the day say aye. They might place their concerns, but at the end of the day, they still turn out and say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. So what's the plus there? There's no plus. Sister Delma says she would be joining the government, the NDC government. The Prime Minister said she won't be. We're not sure what's going on there. We're not sure where she's going to be it in the Parliament or, as rumor has it, the NDC party got her a job in a private firm, in a private business. But I want to end by saying that the Prime Minister, the NDC, needs to wet their house. I heard Sister Delma saying, oh, when a neighbor house on fire, wet yours. And I'm hoping she directed that to the NDC, because when she stood up on the stage at the podium and belched out all that other people told her in private, and she said she called in names, they didn't give her permission, but the truth needs no permission. When she said that she'd been recording private conversation and the person on the other side had no clue. When she said that she keeps her texts so she can photo shoot and send it around if need be, which she's been doing. How can you sit comfortably listening to that and not being worried? As a matter of fact, I would say she talks too much already. And she has started to speak, be it showing off, she has started to speak, allegedly so. And that is why I have some questions for the members on the government side. And let me just get my questions here. Right? I can start by asking, and I'm asking for my followers, who is Mr. Lee? Who is Mr. Lee? Did Mr. Lee sponsor all expenses paid on a 3-day trip to the UK 2 weeks ago for the lady and the ASP? Who will be paying the lady's salary if she's not in government and working on the outside? Would she be working for Mr. Lee, and would Mr. Lee be paying her? Is that the same Mr. Lee who gave you and your cabinet members the golden shovel worth US $30,000? That was at the turning of the sword up at the Livera project. The golden shovels were given out. And it was Mr. Lee that gave it to. Is that the same Mr. Lee that is rumored out there? As I said, I'm asking for my followers. But I have no issue with Sister Delma crossing the floor, moving over. That's her prerogative. And to each his own. Well, in this case, to each her own. Right? But I can't wait for the next campaign, the next election cycle, because there is Sister Gloria, whom Sister Delma said they had no idea that she, Sister Delma, was going to cross over to the NDC. And Sister Gloria don't look so happy these days. And I saw a post she made, and I'm not sure who it's directed at, but I guess who the captain draw the string. And then, how can we leave out Philip Alexander? Young, vibrant, intelligent, a great politician, articulate. And I still maintain that Philip Telesworth should have been the candidate for St. Andrew Northwest and would have won that seat. Because the supporters of the NDC, quite a few of them, who supported Philip Alexander, did not vote. And there was war and rumors of war coming from that constituency between Philip and Sister Gloria. Well, it's mass next election because Philip is still young. And I don't think he thought of ending his political career because he didn't make it as candidate in the last election. I'm sure he have a comeback plan. I don't think Sister Gloria had planned on doing one term. And there is Sister Delma, who won that seat, 3 times? And boast of it. Although in the last election, she claimed that was her last one as well. Food for thought. I'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. I want to segue a little bit into health. And the reason being, I have a passion here. Most of you, a lot of you, quite a few of you might know this. And I might have bring it in somewhere later on down the road. But the reason for coming in now is because it was also one of the questions put to the government side from the opposition. And it was a concern that the Honorable Clarice Modest Cohen had, herself being a former Minister of Health under the NNP regime, was concerned, like quite a few of us, if not most of us, if not all of us should be, because we're talking health here, was concerned about the rumors being circulating about no medication and simple little things, headache medication, Panadol and stuff, gauze, you know, the usual. And this is nothing new, and this is not new to this NDC as well. Government came, government went, government came back. The health system keeps going down. And we can't seem to get it right for some reason. However, I think most of us thought with the coming of the new NDC and all the fancy talks we heard, including health would go on the front burner. Tourism would stay behind. I guess, well, agriculture, education, all of those, but health would be on the front burner. And I agreed with that. It was a good thing because a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. And so we figured that with health on the front burner, we would see a lot of progress in our healthcare system. So the question was asked, what is going on? And the MP for St. Mark seemed to have had her investigations done. She had a list of the medications and the materials and so that we're in shortage of at the hospital, reagents to do blood work and all of that. And as I said, and I will repeat, this is not the first time. It's been going on for years, for decades, right? Government come, government go, government come back. We're in the same ship. But what bothered me was the answer that came again from the leader of government business. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that more or less they met an invoice, a bill, what he termed a big bill, when they came into office. He said it was $2 million, and it went as far back as 2021 and 2022. Now, how far back? How far back is 2021 and 2022? When in fact the government took office in 2022, the middle of 2022. And how, I did a little bit of investigation myself and questioned, $2 million sounds a lot, but when you're buying supplies for 3 hospitals, several clinics throughout the island, and the government dispensary, what we call the government dispensary, is $2 million a lot? And then what I understood, and well, was told, and something that I knew because I actually was very much involved in health when I was with the NDC. I was actually spokesperson for the health sector at one point. And not for the health sector, but shadow for the NDC while they were in opposition. I shadowed as I wasn't going to be a candidate, never planned to be Minister of Health, but we needed extra voices, and health was I was very passionate with health, and so I spoke on health on behalf of the party sometimes. And I knew that the OECS countries, they pooled together and bought the supplies, the health supplies. And then, of course, you get yours, St. Lucia get theirs, we get ours, and so. And, of course, that came up front, and you paid after. So unless you're this rich country, like Dubai or Singapore, or one of these countries, almost always there would be a balance. It don't have to be a big one, but there should be, or almost always there is a balance. So when the NDC came into office, there was a balance of $2 million. We're 11 months since into their reign, 11 months since they became the executive of the country. You remember, health is on the front burner, huh? Health is on the front burner. Tell me, why you're not paying the invoice? You said you met monies, lot of money, enough money in the treasury. Pay the bill. You're talking about life and death. You're talking about human resource, human beings. You can save lives by paying the bill and restocking. You come and telling people since as far back as, well, when you hear as far back as, you're waiting to hear as far back as 2015 or even 2018. That's as far back. 2021, 2022. 2022 was 6 months ago. Pay the bill. And so when an ordinary person who can't afford to go elsewhere or who can't afford to send abroad and have their medication shipped in, even if they can't find it in the pharmacies here on the island, or they just take a flight. Pay the bill because it's your mother and my mother and sister and brother and cousin and neighbor and friend and auntie and nene that go into that hospital, lying on that bed and remaining there in pain. And light the fire under the burner of health care. Please, we begging. Light the fire under health care. I want to talk about the new hospital because we're hearing about the new hospital. We saw photo ops. You know how they like photos, and visiting of lands of the site that they're thinking of putting the new hospital. All of that is lovely because we do need a new hospital, right? But do we need a new hospital now? Because in my mind, what we need is to fix the administrative problem up there at the hospital first off. Because we could do what we want, we could bring in what equipment, we could bring in many doctors. I'm not saying it happened in there because it's not. But even if we have all that in order and we don't have proper administration, we're in the same boat. So we fixed that. We staffed the hospital. Best practices said that we should have a 1-to-4 ratio. 1 nurse to 4 patients. Best practice. I don't think Grenada ever have had that practice. We have 1-to-25, 1-to-30. At one point, I even heard of 1-to-34. 1 nurse. Sometimes they have a nurse's aide with them. And sometimes, in these days, it's a junior doctor on the ward. And so we need to fix that. Staff the hospital with doctors, specialists, right? And the nurses. Spend money on implements and machines and material and medicine. Let's get that going. Let's put all these ducks in a row and save lives, mothers, babies. Save lives. And then, when we have they just did a new wing. Spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions. Right? Let's get that going. Thank God we now have the emergency air condition and the people are well placed in there. I'm not sure what other division of the hospital are now seated in there. But that's a plus. And that's what's money spent. So let's see if we can use up some of the money. Keep the hospital going as is. We know that WHO and PAHO had warned about putting it up there. But all of that is behind us, not because they still went ahead and put it. And they, as in the new National Party. They put it there. We don't have exit. We have narrow roads. The fire trucks would have problems exiting if they exit the way they should. All of that. But before we get a new hospital that would take us years, let's fix what's there. Let's stock up what's there. Let's staff what's there. And then we'll talk about new hospital. I have an idea though, and I'll let you have it before I leave. The new hospital should be put in the Governor General's house, the property where the Governor General was housed before. And even more so now when the Prime Minister went abroad and said that by 2024 we should be republic. So we don't need a Governor General house anymore, really, to be spending money to fix it up for that purpose. They have lovely grounds, they have a lovely view, they have an entrance and an exit. It's in boundary with Mount Weldale, which is government property, so you can have extra parking up there or whatever up there, the lab, whatever, at Mount Weldale. Because that spot You can come from anywhere on island without having to go through the traffic in St. George's. If you come from the western side, you go up Cemetery Hill, you come up Lucas Street, you're there. If you come from St. David's, you have routes. You can come through Wester Hall, Calavini, come up the lane, you're there. If you come through St. Paul's, Pedmata, St. Paul's, you come down Lucas Street, Parade, Lucas Street, you're there. If anywhere you're coming from, you don't have to get tied up in the traffic in town, in St. George's, right? Even if you come from the south, you could come through Grandans Valley and come up without meeting that traffic. I think it's an awesome spot. What do you think? It was nice being with you again. Wonderful, wonderful spending time with you. I would be here same time, same place. Next week, Thursday. Have a great week. Love you all. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.